Have you ever stopped to wonder how many things you do for your health have little or no scientific basis behind them? Today we're going through 55 health habits and beliefs that huge numbers of people still follow without really questioning them. We'll move from food and sleep to skin, exercise, your brain, and everyday body facts. Some contain a piece of truth. Others survive because they sound intuitive. And a few became so familiar that people started repeating them like medical facts. Settle in, because this is a long one. Fact number 1. Intermittent fasting magically resets your metabolism. Intermittent fasting has become one of the biggest nutrition trends of the last several years. The promise often sounds dramatic: stop eating during certain hours, reset your metabolism, burn fat in a special way, and basically reboot your body. The problem is that metabolism does not work like a laptop you can restart. Your metabolism is a continuous network of chemical processes running 24 hours a day, whether you are eating or fasting. What intermittent fasting can do for some people is make it easier to eat fewer total calories simply because there are fewer hours available to eat. That can create a calorie deficit, and a calorie deficit can lead to weight loss. For some people, that structure is practical and sustainable. For others, it is not. The useful effect comes from changing eating behavior and total energy intake. There is no magic metabolic reset button hiding inside the fasting window. Fact number 2. Any food labeled light automatically helps you lose weight. The word light on a package feels reassuring. It sounds like fewer calories, less guilt, and a better choice before you even turn the box around. But light usually means the product contains less of something compared with the company's regular version. That something might be fat, sugar, calories, sodium, or another component. A product can be lower in fat and compensate with more sugar or other ingredients to preserve texture and flavor. The total calorie difference may end up being much smaller than the front of the package makes it feel. There is also a behavioral trap. People often eat larger portions of foods labeled light because they assume they have more room to indulge. That can erase the calorie savings entirely. The front of the package gives you marketing. The nutrition facts give you the actual comparison. Light is not a weight loss guarantee. Fact number 3. Coffee dehydrates you almost as much as drinking no fluid at all. For years, people were told not to count coffee toward daily fluid intake and to drink extra water to make up for the dehydrating effect. Caffeine does have a mild diuretic effect. It can increase urine output somewhat. But in regular coffee drinkers, that effect is usually much smaller than the fact suggests. The coffee itself is mostly water. Studies looking at overall fluid balance in habitual coffee drinkers have found that the water contained in the drink offsets much of the extra urine production. That means coffee can reasonably contribute to total daily hydration. Plain water is still an excellent default beverage. The correction is simply that a cup of coffee is not negative water. You are not ending the drink less hydrated than if you had consumed nothing at all. The caffeine changes fluid handling a little. It does not erase the water in the cup. Fact number 4. Spicy food causes stomach ulcers. For decades, people with ulcers were told to avoid chili peppers because spicy food was believed to burn or erode the stomach lining. Modern medicine changed that story. Most peptic ulcers are linked mainly to infection with Helicobacter pylori or to long-term use of certain anti-inflammatory medications such as NSAIDs. Spicy food is not usually the original cause. That does not mean someone with an existing ulcer or gastritis will feel great after a plate of extremely spicy food. Capsaicin and other irritating foods can worsen symptoms in some people and make burning or discomfort more noticeable. But triggering symptoms is different from creating the ulcer itself. The fact confused aggravation with origin. Spicy food may make an existing problem feel worse. It usually is not what created the hole in the first place. Fact number 5. Eating seafood and drinking milk in the same meal is a dangerous or even deadly combination. This belief exists in several cultures and can sound very serious depending on who tells it. Fish plus dairy is sometimes described as toxic, incompatible, or something the stomach simply cannot handle. There is no known biochemical mechanism that makes seafood protein and dairy protein become poisonous when eaten together. Your digestive system regularly handles mixed meals containing multiple proteins, fats, and carbohydrates at the same time. If someone feels sick after a heavy seafood and dairy meal, the explanation is usually something more ordinary. The meal may simply be rich and high in fat. The person may be lactose intolerant. They may have a seafood allergy. Or one ingredient may not have been handled safely. Plenty of traditional cuisines combine seafood and dairy without any special danger. Cream sauces, chowders, cheese-based seafood dishes, and similar combinations have been eaten safely for generations. The combination is not inherently toxic. Fact number 6. Turkey makes you sleepy because it contains unusually high amounts of tryptophan. This one is practically a Thanksgiving tradition in the United States. Everyone finishes dinner, sinks into the couch, and blames the turkey. Turkey does contain tryptophan, an amino acid involved in pathways connected with serotonin and melatonin. But turkey does not contain some extraordinary amount compared with other common protein foods. Chicken, beef, cheese, nuts, and other foods also contain tryptophan. The post-Thanksgiving sleepiness usually has more to do with the entire meal. Huge portions, stuffing, mashed potatoes, rolls, pie, alcohol in many households, and the fact that you may have been eating for an hour. Any large, carbohydrate-heavy meal can leave you feeling sleepy afterward. The turkey did not cast a chemical sleep spell. The whole table did the work. Fact number 7. Spinach contains as much iron as red meat. Spinach earned a legendary reputation for iron, helped along by generations of cartoons and nutrition trivia. The actual comparison is more complicated. Spinach does contain iron and can absolutely contribute to dietary iron intake. But the amount per typical serving is not equivalent to a comparable serving of red meat. There is another major difference. The iron in plant foods is non-heme iron, which the body absorbs less efficiently than the heme iron found in meat. Pairing plant-based iron sources with vitamin C can improve absorption. The old exaggerated reputation of spinach has also been linked to a historical story about a decimal point error in iron measurements, although the exact details of that story are debated. The useful takeaway is simpler. Spinach is nutritious. It is not a direct iron substitute for red meat gram for gram. Popeye had a good vegetable. The marketing around the iron got a little too strong. Fact number 8. Drinking lemon water first thing in the morning alkalizes your body. The wellness version of this claim says lemon water can shift your body into a healthier alkaline state and improve everything from digestion to disease resistance. Your blood does not work that way. The body keeps blood pH within a very narrow range through tightly controlled systems involving the lungs and kidneys. If blood pH actually moved far outside that range, you would have a medical emergency. A glass of lemon water cannot meaningfully rewrite that system. Food can affect the pH of urine. That is not the same as changing the pH of your blood or alkalizing your entire body. Lemon water can still be useful for ordinary reasons. It can help you drink more fluid. It can provide a small amount of vitamin C. And some people simply enjoy it. The benefit does not require a hidden alkaline transformation. Your body already regulates its pH without asking breakfast for permission. Fact number 9. Artificial sweeteners cause cancer. This claim has circulated for decades, especially around aspartame. The scientific picture is more nuanced than either completely harmless forever or definitely causes cancer. In 2023, the International Agency for Research on Cancer classified aspartame as possibly carcinogenic to humans based on limited evidence. At the same time, the Joint WHO Expert Committee on Food Additives kept its acceptable daily intake unchanged. That distinction matters. A hazard classification asks whether something could possibly cause cancer under some conditions. It does not automatically tell you the risk from ordinary consumption. Current evidence does not show that typical intake levels of approved artificial sweeteners cause cancer in the amounts most people consume. The classification reflects uncertainty and a reason to keep studying the question. It is not proof that a diet soda is a cancer dose. Fact number 10. Eating after 6 p.m. ruins your digestion. The body does not shut down the digestive system when the clock hits 6. Digestion happens in response to food, whether dinner is at 5:30 or 9. What can matter is how close the meal is to bedtime. Lying down soon after a very large or fatty meal can make acid reflux more likely in some people. That is especially true for people who already deal with heartburn. The amount and composition of the meal can matter too. A giant late-night dinner may feel worse than a lighter meal eaten at the same hour. But the number on the clock itself is not a digestive switch. If you leave reasonable time between eating and lying down, your stomach does not suddenly forget how to work because the sun went down. Timing matters. The magic hour does not. Fact number 11. Alcohol gives you real warmth when you are out in the cold. The sensation is real. Alcohol can make your skin feel warmer. But that does not mean your core body temperature is improving. Alcohol causes blood vessels near the skin to dilate. More warm blood reaches the surface, making your skin and temperature receptors feel warm. At the same time, that makes it easier for the body to lose heat to the environment. So the same mechanism that makes you feel warmer can actually make your core cool faster. That is why alcohol can increase the risk of hypothermia in cold conditions. The danger is the mismatch between perception and reality. Your skin says, "I'm warming up." Your body may actually be losing heat faster. Alcohol does not act like an internal heater. It changes where the heat is going. Fact number 12. Eating a high-protein diet damages the kidneys of any healthy person. This warning gets repeated constantly in gyms and nutrition discussions, as if eating more protein automatically wears out the kidneys. The evidence is more specific. For people who already have impaired kidney function, high protein intake can be a real concern and may need to be limited under medical guidance. That is different from saying high protein intake causes new kidney disease in every healthy person. Healthy kidneys are designed to filter the waste products produced when protein is metabolized. And studies in people without pre-existing kidney disease have not consistently shown that higher protein intake creates kidney damage by itself. That does not mean unlimited protein is automatically better. More is not always useful, and extremely unbalanced diets can create other problems. But the blanket rule fails. A person with chronic kidney disease and a healthy athlete are not starting from the same physiological situation. Protein does not automatically damage healthy kidneys simply because the intake is above average. Fact number 13. Farmed fish does not contain real omega-3. As farm-raised salmon and other aquaculture products became more common, a strange belief appeared. If the fish did not grow in the wild, the omega-3 must somehow be fake or missing. Farmed fish can absolutely contain omega-3 fatty acids. Like wild fish, they obtain those fats largely through diet. Aquaculture feeds may include fish oils, fish meal, algae-derived ingredients, or plant sources specifically formulated to provide fatty acids. The exact omega-3 content varies by species, farm, feed composition, and production method. In some cases, wild fish may contain different levels or ratios. In other cases, farmed fish can still be an excellent source. The important point is that omega-3 is a chemical nutrient, not a badge that only wild animals are allowed to carry. The fish does not need to swim freely in the ocean for the molecule to be real. What matters is what species you are eating and what that fish actually contains. Fact number 14. Dandruff means your hair or scalp is dirty. Seeing white flakes on someone's shoulders creates an immediate hygiene judgment. People assume the person simply needs to shampoo more often. Dandruff is not usually a sign that someone failed to wash. It is commonly associated with scalp inflammation and the activity of malassezia, a yeast that naturally lives on human skin. In susceptible people, that interaction can speed up skin cell turnover and produce visible flakes. Washing more aggressively is not always the answer. Harsh shampoos or excessive scrubbing can irritate the scalp and make symptoms worse. That is why effective dandruff treatments often contain specific active ingredients designed to reduce yeast activity, scale, or inflammation. The flakes are not proof of poor hygiene. They are evidence that the scalp is reacting differently. A clean person can have dandruff. A dirty scalp is not required. Fact number 15. Deodorant or antiperspirant causes breast cancer. This concern has circulated online for years, especially around aluminum-containing antiperspirants. The story sounds plausible because the products are applied near breast tissue and because aluminum compounds affect sweat production. But large epidemiological studies have not established a causal link between normal use of deodorants or antiperspirants and increased breast cancer risk. Major cancer organizations have reviewed the claim and do not consider routine deodorant use an established breast cancer risk factor based on current evidence. That does not mean scientists stopped studying every possible ingredient forever. It means the strong claim, using antiperspirant causes breast cancer, is not supported by the evidence people often assume exists. Location alone is not proof of causation. A product being applied near the breast does not mean its ingredients are driving cancer in nearby tissue. Fact number 16. Sweat itself smells bad. Fresh sweat is mostly water and salts and is generally close to odorless. The classic body odor develops later. Certain glands, especially apocrine glands in places like the armpits, release secretions containing compounds that skin bacteria can break down. Those bacteria produce smaller molecules with strong odors. That is why sweat from your forehead or back after a workout may smell very different from underarm sweat. Different glands, different chemistry, different bacterial activity. The body odor we blame on sweat is really the result of sweat interacting with the microbial community living on the skin. So the fluid itself is not walking out of your pores already smelling like a locker room. The odor is manufactured after the sweat arrives. Fact number 17. If you remove hair often enough, it eventually stops growing back. The idea is that repeated shaving, waxing, or plucking somehow exhausts the hair follicle until it gives up. Temporary hair removal methods do not normally destroy the follicle. Shaving cuts hair at or near the skin surface. Waxing and tweezing pull the hair shaft out from the root. But the follicle itself usually remains capable of producing another hair during the next growth cycle. That is why the hair comes back. Methods designed for longer-term reduction work differently. Laser hair reduction targets pigment in the follicle and can reduce its ability to produce hair over repeated treatments. Electrolysis targets the follicle more directly. Those methods are attempting to change the follicle. A razor is not. Wax can remove the current hair. It does not teach the follicle to retire. Fact number 18. Sleeping in socks is bad for circulation. Some people refuse to wear socks to bed because they picture the elastic slowly squeezing off blood flow overnight. A normal pair of socks that fits comfortably does not create enough pressure to meaningfully block circulation in a healthy person. In fact, keeping the feet warm may help some people fall asleep more easily. Warm feet encourage blood vessels near the skin to dilate, which can help the body redistribute and release heat as part of the normal transition into sleep. The concern becomes different if the socks are extremely tight, leave deep marks, or are being worn by someone with certain vascular or nerve conditions. That is not the same as an ordinary pair of loose sleep socks. If the sock feels comfortable and is not constricting, your toes are not slowly being cut off from the bloodstream while you sleep. Sometimes warm feet are just warm feet. Fact number 19. Showering every day always dries out your skin. Daily bathing gets blamed as if frequency alone determines whether the skin barrier survives. For many people, a short daily shower with lukewarm water and a gentle cleanser is perfectly compatible with healthy skin. What tends to dry the skin more aggressively is the combination of very hot water, harsh soaps, long shower times, frequent scrubbing, and failure to moisturize afterward when needed. People with eczema, naturally dry skin, or other dermatologic conditions may need a different routine. That is an individual issue. The rule daily showering is bad for everyone is too broad. The skin cares about temperature, cleanser strength, duration, and barrier support. It does not simply count how many showers appeared on the calendar. How you bathe often matters more than how many days in a row you bathe. Fact number 20. Pulling out one gray hair makes several new gray hairs grow in its place. Almost everyone has heard this warning. Pluck one gray hair and 3 more will appear. But one hair follicle produces one hair at a time. Pulling a gray hair does not create new follicles around it. The number and location of follicles were determined long before the first gray hair appeared. What does happen is timing. As you age, nearby follicles may independently begin losing pigment too. If you pluck one gray hair and notice several more a month later, it can look as though the first one multiplied. They were simply following their own aging process. Repeated plucking can potentially irritate or damage a follicle. That is a real reason not to make a habit of yanking hairs out. Multiplying gray hairs is not. The gray hair is not calling reinforcements. Fact number 21. A tan is a sign that your skin is healthy. In American culture, tan skin has often been marketed as athletic, vacation-ready, and healthy-looking. Dermatology sees something different. A tan is part of the skin's response to ultraviolet radiation. UV exposure damages cells, and the skin responds by producing more melanin in an attempt to reduce further damage. That darker color is therefore not proof that the skin became healthier. It is visible evidence that the skin reacted to radiation exposure. Repeated tanning increases photoaging and contributes to the cumulative UV damage associated with skin cancers, including melanoma. This applies to tanning beds too. A tan may fit a cultural beauty standard. Biologically, it is a defense response. The skin is not showing off how healthy it is. It is showing you that it had to protect itself. Fact number 22. Licking a wound disinfects it. The instinct is almost automatic. You cut your finger, and before you even think about it, the finger is in your mouth. Human saliva does contain enzymes and compounds with some antimicrobial activity. That is the piece of truth keeping the fact alive. But saliva also contains a large community of bacteria adapted to living inside the mouth. Those organisms may be harmless in their normal environment and far less welcome inside damaged skin. Introducing oral bacteria into an open wound can increase infection risk rather than reduce it. The better approach is the boring one. Rinse the wound with clean water. Use appropriate gentle cleaning. Protect it as needed. Your mouth is not a sterile first aid kit. Saliva has useful biology. That does not make it disinfectant. Fact number 23. Cold feet always mean you have serious circulation problems. If your feet are cold while everyone else seems comfortable, it is easy to jump straight to poor circulation. That can be one cause. It is far from the only one. Some people naturally have cooler hands and feet because of how their bodies regulate peripheral blood flow. Stress and anxiety can temporarily constrict blood vessels. A cool room can affect the feet before you consciously feel cold elsewhere. Even simple differences in body composition and metabolism can change how warm your extremities feel. True circulation problems usually bring additional signs such as persistent color changes, pain with walking, slow healing wounds, numbness, or swelling. Cold feet by themselves do not automatically diagnose vascular disease. Sometimes the explanation is medical. Sometimes your feet are simply the first part of you to notice the room is cold. Fact number 24. Sitting in a sauna or steam room can sweat out a cold. This one has a satisfying image behind it. Heat your body. Sweat heavily. Push the virus out through the skin. Respiratory viruses do not leave the body through sweat. Your immune system clears them through internal immune processes involving infected cells, antibodies, and other defense mechanisms. A steam room can still make you feel better temporarily. Warm, humid air may loosen mucus and make nasal congestion easier to tolerate. The heat can also feel soothing when you are achy or chilled. That is symptom relief. It is not the virus being forced out through your pores. The cold will still follow its biological course. Sweating can change how you feel. It does not evict the infection. Fact number 25. Raw garlic cures bacterial infections like a natural antibiotic. Garlic has a strong reputation as a home remedy, and there is a real scientific reason the idea sounds plausible. Garlic contains compounds such as allicin that can show antimicrobial activity in laboratory experiments. The problem is the distance between a Petri dish and a human infection. A compound killing bacteria under controlled laboratory conditions does not automatically mean eating raw garlic produces the same concentration at the site of an infection inside the body. Absorption, metabolism, distribution, and dose all change the situation. There is no solid clinical evidence that raw garlic can replace an appropriate antibiotic for an established bacterial infection. Garlic can be part of a healthy diet. It can be interesting from a research perspective. It is not a substitute for prescribed antimicrobial treatment when a real bacterial infection needs one. The kitchen can support health. It is not automatically a pharmacy. Fact number 26. A vaccine can give you the exact disease it is supposed to prevent. This fear often appears after someone feels tired, achy, feverish, or sore for a day or two after vaccination. Those symptoms can feel like a mild version of the disease. But most modern vaccines do not contain a fully functional pathogen capable of causing the illness they are designed to prevent. Some use inactivated organisms. Some use purified pieces. Some use genetic instructions that teach cells to produce a harmless target. Some use other platforms entirely. The temporary symptoms people experience are often signs of immune activation rather than the disease itself. There are specific live-attenuated vaccines where mild disease-like symptoms can occasionally occur. That is a very different situation from saying vaccines in general simply infect you with a full disease. The immune system can practice without the real disaster. That is the entire point. Fact number 27. Any high fever is automatically dangerous and must be brought down immediately. A high number on a thermometer can be frightening, especially when it belongs to a child. But fever is not simply a malfunction. It is part of the body's immune response and can make the environment less favorable for some pathogens while helping certain immune processes work. The number still matters. So does the person's age, medical history, hydration, behavior, and other symptoms. A very young infant with a fever may require urgent evaluation. Extremely high temperatures or fever with confusion, severe breathing problems, dehydration, seizures, stiff neck, or other warning signs can be serious. The fact is the idea that every fever must be treated aggressively simply because the number looks high. In many routine viral illnesses, comfort and overall condition matter as much as the thermometer. Fever is a signal. It is not automatically the enemy. Fact number 28. Starving a cold helps you recover faster. The old saying has several versions, but the basic idea is that food somehow feeds the infection. Your immune system needs energy. It needs amino acids, vitamins, minerals, and other resources to build and coordinate an immune response. Deliberately refusing food during an ordinary cold does not make the virus run out of fuel before you do. That does not mean forcing down a huge meal when you have no appetite. Illness often naturally reduces hunger, and light foods may feel much easier to tolerate. Hydration also becomes especially important. The sensible approach is to eat according to appetite, choose nourishing foods you can tolerate, and keep fluids up. The virus is not sitting at the dinner table waiting for you to feed it. Your immune system is the part that needs the resources. Fact number 29. Honey cures every kind of cough. Honey can genuinely help some coughs. That is why this fact is harder to separate from reality than many others. For mild coughs associated with common viral respiratory infections, honey can soothe an irritated throat and has shown benefit in some studies, including comparisons with certain over-the-counter cough products. But cough is a symptom, not a disease. Asthma can cause cough. Allergies can cause cough. Acid reflux can cause cough. Pneumonia can cause cough. A bacterial infection, medication side effect, or heart problem can cause cough. Honey does not treat all those causes. It may make the throat feel better, while the underlying condition remains unchanged. And honey should never be given to infants under 1 year old because of the risk of infant botulism. Honey can be useful. It is not a universal cough diagnosis and cure in one spoon. Fact number 30. Exposing yourself to random germs trains your immune system exactly like a vaccine. This idea sometimes gets used to argue that hygiene or vaccination makes the immune system lazy. There is truth in the broader idea that normal exposure to environmental microbes helps shape immune development, especially early in life. That is not the same thing as intentionally catching a dangerous infectious disease. A vaccine is designed to expose the immune system to a specific target in a controlled way while avoiding, as much as possible, the full risks of the disease. Natural infection comes with the pathogen's actual ability to damage tissue, spread through the body, cause complications, and infect other people. The immune system may learn from both experiences. The price of the lesson is not the same. A vaccine is controlled training. A dangerous infection is the real emergency. Fact number 31. The more sore you are the day after a workout, the better the workout was. Delayed onset muscle soreness can make an exercise session feel productive. If walking down the stairs hurts, surely you must have done something right. Soreness is often strongest after new movements, unfamiliar exercises, eccentric loading, or a sudden increase in training volume. That means soreness can reflect novelty as much as effectiveness. As your body adapts, the exact same productive workout may cause almost no soreness at all. Strength gains, endurance improvements, better technique, and muscle growth do not require you to be miserable the next morning. Chasing soreness can actually push people toward constantly changing exercises or doing more damage than their recovery can handle. Pain is not a progress meter. A good training plan becomes more effective when you can recover from it and repeat it. Fact number 32. Doing of exercises burns fat specifically from your stomach. This is one of the most persistent fitness facts because the logic feels so direct. Work the abdominal muscles. Burn the abdominal fat. The body does not choose fat stores based on which muscle is contracting underneath them. When fat is mobilized for energy, it comes from stores across the body according to genetics, hormones, blood flow, and overall energy balance. Crunches, planks, and other abdominal exercises strengthen the muscles in the midsection. They can improve stability and make those muscles larger or stronger. They do not command the fat sitting above them to disappear first. Losing abdominal fat requires lowering overall body fat. The EBS can become stronger underneath. Whether you can see them is a separate energy balance question. Fact number 33. Lifting weights makes women become extremely bulky almost by accident. This fear keeps many women away from strength training. The image is that a few months with dumbbells will suddenly produce a bodybuilder's physique. Large amounts of muscle take time. They also require progressive training, adequate nutrition, recovery, genetics that support hypertrophy, and hormonal conditions that differ substantially between individuals. Women generally have much lower testosterone levels than men, which makes extreme muscular growth considerably harder and slower. Strength training more commonly improves strength, muscle tone, bone density, physical function, and body composition. Women who deliberately build very large amounts of muscle usually spend years training specifically for that goal. You do not accidentally wake up looking like a competitive bodybuilder because you started squatting twice a week. Muscle is expensive tissue. The body does not build huge amounts by mistake. Fact number 34. Running inevitably destroys your knees over time. The idea sounds obvious because running repeatedly loads the knee with every step. So after enough years, the joint must wear out like a mechanical hinge. Research comparing recreational runners with sedentary adults has not consistently found higher rates of knee osteoarthritis among runners. Some studies even suggest regular running may be associated with healthier joint function in many people. That does not mean running injuries are imaginary. Per training progression, previous injuries, major biomechanical problems, inadequate recovery, and suddenly increasing mileage can all create trouble. The key distinction is between appropriate repetitive loading and chronic injury. Cartilage and supporting tissues are living structures that adapt to reasonable stress. A knee is not a car tire with a fixed number of miles. Running badly can hurt you. Running itself is not an automatic sentence of future arthritis. Fact number 35. No pain, no gain means real exercise should hurt. The phrase is catchy enough to fit on a gym wall. Taken literally, it is terrible medical advice. Hard training can create burning muscles, fatigue, heavy breathing, and discomfort. That is different from sharp, sudden, or localized pain. Acute pain can be a warning that a tendon, joint, muscle, or other structure is being injured. ignoring that signal because pain means progress can turn a small problem into weeks or months away from training. Effective exercise comes from enough stress to stimulate adaptation, followed by enough recovery to let the body adapt. It does not require proving your toughness by pushing through every painful sensation. Discomfort can be part of training. Injury is not a badge of productivity. Fact number 36. Getting into cold water after a workout is automatically dangerous for your heart. Cold showers and ice baths can feel extreme. The sudden temperature change can cause a real physiological response, including changes in breathing, heart rate, and blood pressure. But for most healthy people, brief cold water exposure after exercise is not automatically a cardiac emergency. Athletes use cold water immersion in some recovery settings, especially after intense competition. That does not mean it is necessary or ideal for everyone. And people with known cardiovascular disease, uncontrolled blood pressure, or other medical concerns may need specific guidance before using very cold immersion. The important correction is that cold shock exists is not the same as cold water after exercise is always dangerous. Healthy bodies can usually adapt to the temperature change. The risk depends on the person, the temperature, and how extreme the exposure is. Fact number 37. If you are not born flexible, you cannot meaningfully improve flexibility. Some people touch their toes easily as kids. Others feel tight from the first stretching class they ever attend. That can make flexibility feel like a fixed genetic trait. Genetics do influence joint shape, connective tissue, limb proportions, and a person's natural starting range. But flexibility is trainable. Structured stretching and mobility programs have repeatedly shown measurable improvements in joint range of motion over weeks and months. The nervous system also becomes more tolerant of stretch as practice continues. That does not mean everyone can become a gymnast. Your anatomy still creates individual limits. But starting stiff does not mean staying stiff forever. Genes may set part of the ceiling. Training still moves the floor. Fact number 38. Wearing a waist trainer or sweat belt during exercise burns fat specifically from your stomach. The belt feels hot. The area sweats more. When you remove it, the waist may even look temporarily smaller. That visual feedback makes the product feel like it worked. What you mainly lost was water. A tight belt traps heat and increases local sweating. That can temporarily reduce water in the skin and tissues around the area. Once you rehydrate, the change returns. External pressure does not command the body to burn fat from the exact area being compressed. Fat loss still depends on overall energy balance and the body's genetically influenced pattern of fat mobilization. A sweat belt can make your stomach sweat. Sweat is not melted fat. Fact number 39. Swimming is such a complete workout that you never need any other form of exercise. Swimming deserves its reputation. It trains the cardiovascular system, uses large muscle groups, and provides an excellent low-impact workout. But excellent and complete in every physiological category are different claims. Water supports body weight. That reduces joint impact, which is one of swimming's great advantages. It also means swimming does not provide the same weight-bearing stimulus to the skeleton as walking, running, jumping, or resistance training. That mechanical loading matters for bone density. Strength training can also provide a more targeted progressive load than swimming alone. A person can be extremely fit through swimming. Combining it with resistance or weight-bearing exercise can cover areas the pool does not emphasize as strongly. One sport can be fantastic without doing literally everything. Fact number 40. Violent video games make people violent. This debate has been going on for decades, especially after real-world acts of violence when people search for a simple cultural cause. The research is complicated. Some meta-analyses have found small associations between violent video game exposure and measures of minor aggression, such as hostile behavior in laboratory settings. Other researchers have criticized the methods used in those studies and found much weaker effects when the same questions are analyzed differently. What has not been established is a reliable causal pathway from playing violent video games to committing serious, violent crime. Real-world violence is influenced by a far more complex mix of individual, social, family, psychological, and environmental factors. That does not mean media content can never influence mood or behavior. It means the dramatic claim violent games create violent criminals goes far beyond what the evidence can support. The joystick is an easy suspect. Human violence is not an easy equation. Fact number 41. You can fully repay a week of lost sleep by sleeping much longer on the weekend. Sleep debt feels like a bank account. Lose 2 hours Monday through Friday. Sleep 10 extra hours Saturday. Account balanced. Weekend recovery sleep can absolutely make you feel better and may reverse part of the immediate sleepiness. But research suggests it does not completely erase every metabolic, hormonal, cognitive, and circadian effect of chronic weekday sleep restriction. There is also a schedule problem. Sleeping and waking much later on weekends can shift your body clock. Then Monday morning arrives and your alarm feels like a miniature jet lag experiment. That pattern is sometimes called social jet lag. The better long-term strategy is more consistent sleep across the week. Catching up can help. It is not a perfect biological refund. Fact number 42. Playing classical music for a baby makes the child permanently smarter. The Mozart effect became a parenting industry in the 1990s. Classical music CDs were sold as if they were developmental software for the infant brain. The original research did not show that. The famous study involved college students, not babies. It found a small, temporary improvement on a specific spatial reasoning task after listening to Mozart. The effect lasted only a short time and was never evidence of a permanent rise in IQ. Later attempts to turn that finding into Mozart makes babies smarter went far beyond the data. Music can still be wonderful for infants. Singing, rhythm, interaction, and active music making can support bonding and development. The fact is the claim that passive listening to one composer permanently upgrades intelligence. Mozart wrote music. He did not write baby brain firmware. Fact number 43. Dreaming in black and white is a sign of a psychological problem. People sometimes notice that their dreams seem colorless and wonder whether something is wrong. Research into dream reports has found a fascinating cultural pattern. Older generations who grew up with black and white television and movies were much more likely to report dreaming in black and white than younger people raised almost entirely with color media. That suggests media exposure and memory can influence how dreams are experienced or recalled. There is no established evidence that black and white dreaming by itself indicates a mental health disorder. Some people dream vividly in color. Some remember little color. Some cannot tell afterward. Dream recall is already unreliable and incomplete. The color palette is not a psychiatric test. Fact number 44. The brain stops producing any new neurons after childhood. For many years, neuroscience taught a very rigid version of this idea. Once development ended, the adult brain was thought to have a fixed supply of neurons that could only decline. Later research found evidence that new neurons can still form in the adult hippocampus, a region strongly involved in memory and learning. The exact amount of adult neurogenesis in humans is still debated. Different laboratories and techniques have produced different estimates, especially in older adults. But the old absolute statement, the adult brain can never make a new neuron under any circumstances, no longer fits the scientific discussion. The adult brain is much more dynamic than earlier models suggested. It changes connections. It changes structure. And at least in some regions, evidence suggests it can continue producing new neurons. The brain did not stop being biological when childhood ended. Fact number 45. Cracking your neck is always a completely safe way to relieve tension. The sound itself is not automatically dangerous. Like cracking knuckles, the pop can come from changes in pressure and gas inside a joint. The concern is how the movement is performed. The neck contains important nerves, joints, and blood vessels, including arteries that supply the brain. Forceful, fast, or extreme rotation of the neck can, in rare cases, injure those structures. Medical case reports have described vascular injuries associated with sudden neck manipulation. That does not mean every gentle neck pop is an emergency waiting to happen. Most people who naturally move their neck and hear an occasional crack will never experience a serious problem. The fact is the word always. A gentle, comfortable movement is very different from aggressively twisting the neck to force a sound. Relief does not require turning your cervical spine into a party trick. Fact number 46. Counting sheep is an especially effective way to fall asleep faster. Cartoons have made this the universal image of insomnia. 1 sheep, 2 sheep, 3 sheep. Eventually the brain gives up and goes to sleep. When sleep researchers directly compared counting sheep with other mental strategies, the sheep were not especially impressive. In some experiments, people fell asleep faster when they imagined a detailed, relaxing scene such as a peaceful beach or a calming landscape than when they performed the repetitive counting task. The likely reason is attention. A rich mental image can occupy enough of the mind to compete with worries. Counting identical sheep may be so boring and mechanically simple that anxious thoughts keep slipping back in. The technique is not harmful. It is just not the scientifically proven sleep hack popular culture made it out to be. Counting sheep became the symbol of trying to sleep. That does not mean the sheep are particularly good at the job. Fact number 47. Eating chocolate before bed always keeps you awake. Chocolate does contain caffeine. It also contains theobromine, another compound with mild stimulant properties. That part is real. The amount depends heavily on the type and portion. Dark chocolate generally contains more caffeine and theobromine than milk chocolate. But a normal serving of milk chocolate usually contains far less caffeine than a cup of coffee. For many people, that amount is not enough to noticeably interfere with sleep. For someone highly sensitive to caffeine, a large serving of dark chocolate late at night could matter. So the response is individual. The fact takes chocolate contains stimulants and turns it into chocolate always causes insomnia. Dose matters. Type matters. Sensitivity matters. A few squares of chocolate are not automatically an all-night wakefulness prescription. Fact number 48. Multitasking makes you more productive than focusing on one task at a time. Multitasking feels efficient because you are constantly doing something. Email, message, spreadsheet, phone call, back to the spreadsheet. It creates a powerful sense of speed. For complex tasks, the brain usually is not truly processing all of them at once. It is switching attention rapidly from one to another. Each switch carries a cognitive cost. You have to remember where you were, rebuild context, and redirect attention. Those tiny delays accumulate. Research on task switching consistently finds that frequent switching can increase total completion time and increase errors compared with doing demanding tasks in focused sequence. There are exceptions. Humans can combine a highly automatic task with another activity in some situations. But too attention-heavy tasks do not magically become free when performed together. Multitasking often feels busy. Busy and productive are not the same measurement. Fact number 49. Tattoos stop you from sweating normally in the tattooed area. Tattoo ink is placed into the skin, so it is reasonable to wonder whether the process damages sweat glands. Research comparing tattooed skin with untattooed skin on the same people has found that tattooed areas may show small differences in sweat production or composition in some studies. The source describes a slight localized reduction rather than a complete shutdown. That distinction matters. A tattoo does not normally create a patch of skin that can no longer sweat at all. And for the overwhelming majority of people with ordinary tattoo coverage, any localized difference is far too small to prevent the whole body from regulating temperature normally. Someone covered in very extensive tattoos raises a more interesting research question than someone with one tattoo on the forearm. The fact takes a subtle local effect and turns it into complete failure. Tattooed skin can still sweat. It may simply behave a little differently in the area that was tattooed. Fact number 50. The blood inside your veins is blue until it reaches oxygen. You can look at the inside of your wrist right now and see blue or greenish veins. That makes the explanation feel obvious. Blue vein. Blue blood. Then the blood hits oxygen and turns red. Human blood is never actually blue. Blood with a high oxygen level is bright red. Blood with a lower oxygen level is darker red, closer to maroon. The blue appearance comes from the way light travels through skin and tissue. Different wavelengths are absorbed and scattered differently depending on depth, skin properties, and the vessel underneath. Your eyes interpret the result as blue or green. If you could see venous blood directly, it would still be red. The oxygen level changes the shade. It does not change the blood into a different primary color. The vein looks blue. The blood never signed that contract. Fact number 51. Sneezing with your eyes open can make your eyeballs pop out. The fact has survived partly because most people automatically close their eyes when they sneeze. That reflex makes it almost impossible to test casually, which lets the imagination fill in the danger. Your eyes are held in place by muscles, connective tissue, nerves, and the bony orbits surrounding them. The pressure generated during a sneeze is nowhere near enough to launch them out of their sockets. Closing the eyes during a sneeze is a reflex. It is not an emergency safety mechanism keeping the eyeballs from escaping. Some people can sneeze with their eyes partly open. Their eyes stay exactly where anatomy put them. The sneeze is dramatic. The eyeball ejection is not. Fact number 52. Swallowing your saliva more often than usual always means something is seriously wrong. Once you become aware of swallowing, it can suddenly feel like you are doing it constantly. That attention itself can increase the sensation. Anxiety and nervousness can also change saliva production and make people swallow more frequently. Dry mouth can paradoxically make someone think about swallowing more. So can talking, eating, stress, or simply focusing on the movement. There are medical conditions where abnormal swallowing frequency appears alongside other symptoms. That is why persistent trouble swallowing, pain, choking, neurological changes, or other concerning signs deserve evaluation. But noticing that you swallowed several times during a stressful meeting is not automatically evidence of a serious throat or neurological disease. The act is normally automatic. Once you start monitoring it, normal can suddenly feel abnormal. Fact number 53. Eating before bed causes more nightmares than the stress in your life. When someone has a disturbing dream, dinner gets blamed surprisingly often. Spicy food, cheese, dessert, late-night snacks. But psychological factors such as stress, anxiety, trauma, emotional conflict, and major life changes can have a much stronger relationship with disturbing dreams. A large or uncomfortable meal before bed can affect sleep quality. It may cause reflux, more awakenings, or fragmented sleep. Those extra awakenings can make dreams easier to remember, creating the impression that food produced more nightmares. That is different from the meal directly writing the frightening content. If nightmares are persistent, the more useful question may be what is happening in your waking life rather than what was on the plate at 11 p.m. Dinner can disturb sleep. Stress can shape the story your sleeping brain tells. Fact number 54. Your blood type determines major personality traits. This belief is especially popular in parts of East Asia, where blood type can be treated almost like astrology. Type A may be described as organized. Type B as independent. Type O as outgoing. Type O as mysterious. The blood type system is based on specific antigens on the surface of red blood cells. Those antigens matter enormously for blood transfusion and immune compatibility. There is no established biological mechanism connecting them to complex personality traits such as extroversion, discipline, creativity, or emotional style. Studies looking for reliable relationships between blood type and validated personality measurements have not found a consistent scientific pattern strong enough to support the belief. Blood type is medically important. It is not a personality test hidden inside your veins. The classification can tell a hospital what blood you can safely receive. It cannot tell your friends what kind of person you are. Fact number 55. Being left-handed means you will die younger than right-handed people. This claim became famous after a 1991 study reported that left-handed people appeared to die, on average, years earlier than right-handed people. The finding generated alarming headlines. Later researchers identified a major methodological problem. Older generations were much more likely to have been forced to write with the right hand even if they were naturally left-handed. That means among older people who died during the study period, many natural left-handers were recorded or remembered as right-handed. Younger generations were more likely to openly identify as left-handed. That historical shift could make the left-handed group look artificially younger at death even if handedness had nothing to do with lifespan. Later studies using populations where handedness had been reliably documented did not find the dramatic lifespan gap. Being left-handed may change which scissors feel comfortable. It does not appear to subtract years from your life. And that brings us to the end of 55 health facts and habits people keep repeating without questioning. Some came from old medical advice. Some came from advertising. Some came from family traditions. And some survived because they contain just enough truth to sound scientific. Coffee can increase urination, but that does not make it negative hydration. Turkey contains tryptophan, but Thanksgiving sleepiness is bigger than one amino acid. Sweat is involved in body odor, but bacteria create most of the smell. A tan changes your skin color, but it is not a sign that the skin became healthier. The pattern is the same again and again. A true detail becomes a simple rule. The rule gets repeated. Eventually nobody remembers where the explanation came from. The next time someone gives you one of these health rules with absolute confidence, you now know the better question to ask. What is the actual